You're not going to believe some of the horrible things builders in Raleigh, North Carolina are doing to buyers these days. Hi, this is Chris Morton, real estate broker with eXp Realty in Raleigh, North Carolina. And on today's video, we're going to go into detail about some of the really bad, horrible things builders are doing in Raleigh, North Carolina to home buyers. But before we do, two important things. Number one, this is only some of the builders. This is not all of the builders out there. There's some really, really good builders. In fact, please email us, contact us, and we'll be happy to share some information about some good builders. But these are some of the bad things builders do, and so you need to be prepared about it. And number two thing to tell you about, we're going to drill this home many times throughout this video. Do not, under any circumstances whatsoever, have any conversations or have any meetings with any builders unless you have your own real estate agent representative there with you, handling the process and being the go-between. In most cases, this will not cost you as a buyer any amount of money to have this representation. There are some instances where it will cost you, but I can assure you it is money well spent. So, with all that out of the way, let's get on with some of the bad things builders are doing these days. Bad thing number one these builders are doing, luring in unsuspecting buyers into their sales centers, and then after the fact telling them it's too late to have buyer representation. So this is something we see all the time, unfortunately. So here's how it goes. A buyer, unsuspecting buyer, goes into one of these sales centers, one of these model homes for these builders, starts chatting them up. The representative is very, very nice, very, very friendly, acts like they're on your side. Just a hint, they're not on your side. They represent the builder. And so they get into the process of helping you buy a home. You go down the primrose path, and before too long, it's too late. You've had too much of a major contact with this on-site, this builder representative, and so therefore it's too late for you to have your own representation. And this has happened many, many times with clients that have reached out to us and said, hey, we want your help buying a house. We get into a conversation with them and come to find out they've already had a conversation with builder A, B, and C, and then we go to have a connection with builders A, B, and C, and come to find out they are not going to be willing to work with us and help that client out, that they are stuck either with one of those three builders, none of those three builders, and we're going to have to either do one of two things. Either number one, go find them another builder to help build their house and get them in their new house, or number two, let them go unrepresented. And that is not a really good scenario for the buyer, unfortunately, as we'll talk about in a second. So why is it a big deal for you to be unrepresented when you go see these builders? Well, the number one main reason is all of these builder contracts are written to the favor of the builders. They have the right to put anything in that contract they want. And if you're not skilled at reading contracts, and let's face it, most people just breeze over a contract. They don't go line by line by line, especially when you've got someone standing there who was 10 minutes ago a super nice person, but now they're like, come on, speed it up. Well, you're going to be under stress. You're just going to sign things. You've got rose-colored glasses on. You're so excited about the situation. You've seen the model. You've not even thought about going in and seeing some of their regular homes. Anyway, the whole situation is just fraught with disaster. They can have weird things in their contract, like that they have up to 3 years to build your home, that they have the right to do this, that, and the other to you, that you must use this vendor and not that vendor, that you're not allowed to have an inspection, all kinds of crazy stuff in there. But most of all, they can convince you what they're selling you is worth the money, when in reality, the builder down the street may be selling a very similar product for $50,000 less. So, on with that story I was talking about. We had a client that came to us last year wanting our help to buy a home. He was very excited about moving to a specific area of Cary, North Carolina. So, he's ready to meet with us on Saturday, gets into town Friday afternoon, and instead of just driving around, he decides to do a little advance work and goes into one of these model homes where the builder representative is sitting. They welcome our buyer in with open arms, happy to help. Let's get you a cup of coffee. How are things going? Let's tell us about your family, yada, 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 all that. They start asking questions, this builder representative does. They start deciding which neighborhood is good, or what part of the neighborhood I should say is good. They narrow down lots. They take our buyer out to look at lots. So they take our buyer and show them different floor plans, the whole process. At the end, our buyer says, "Thanks so much for the information. We'll be back tomorrow morning with our agent." And the on-site says, in the not so sweetest voice possible, "Oh no, it's too late. You've been here with us too long. We are the what's called procuring cause, and you can't have a representative. We're going to handle everything." So the buyer and I spent 2 days looking at alternative situations. Unfortunately, we didn't find any, and the buyer is out about $200,000 more by going with this builder than would have paid if they'd gone with another builder, but unfortunately there was no inventory available at that time. So again, do not go into these on-site centers without your buyer representation. That builder representative, that on-site, was at best unethical. They should never have had a conversation with anyone walking in their door unless that conversation starts with the following: do you have a real estate agent? Are you going to have a real estate agent? If so, you need to bring your real estate agent before I can have a conversation with you. The good builders do it that way. The very best builders do it that way. The very best builders want you to have a buyer's agent. And the reason why, it's another layer to make that process go smoother. They want those on-sites, those builder representatives, and the good ones, want you to have a buyer agent, because the buyer agent's going to stay on you to make sure your mortgage process is going well, that if you're going to get an inspection, that it's done on time, that everything is running smoothly, and that there's no hiccups on your end. For example, you may have a house to sell in your hometown, and that buyer agent for you can be the conduit to call back the buyer and the builder, and say, everything is going great with our clients. Their home in Kalamazoo, Michigan is already under contract. They're moved into temporary housing in Kalamazoo. They're ready to close. Just let us know when you want to close and we'll have it all buttoned up. That is a very smooth transaction for a builder instead of this mystery process. But I think some of the slimy builders incentivize their builder representative on-sites. They give them more money, like a bonus, if there is no agent involved. And why would they do that? Because they don't want you as a buyer to have an inspection. They don't want someone breathing down their neck when they've delayed the process. More on that in a minute. So these slimy builders don't want agents on board, unfortunately. So what can you do? Again, make sure you have representation. So bad thing number 2 these builders do: keeping the buyer's agent out of the inspection process. So there's a story that's floating around the real estate Facebook groups around Raleigh about a builder who sent out a letter, and I've seen the letter, that says, due to the pandemic, we are no longer allowing real estate agent, buyer agents for the buyer to be present at the home inspections. These are like the orientation meetings that the builder has with the buyer to make sure everything's buttoned up and looks good. So they're saying they're doing this because of the pandemic, out of an abundance of caution. Just a hint, if anyone says they're doing something out of an abundance of caution, run, don't walk. So the problem that I have with this is we're 2 years plus into this pandemic. Why are they now just deciding to do this? Well, obviously they've had issues where these naughty buyer's agents have dared to ask the builder to fix things. Or worse yet, these naughty buyer agents have actually had a general inspection done by their independent inspector, and the builder doesn't like that because that means more work they've got to do. That the hope is that the buyer's going to buy the house, not worry about the inspection, move in. If there's anything that needs repaired, they'll either pay for it themselves or don't worry about it, or tell the builder about it a year later. That's generally what they're trying to do. So I had something similar to this happen to me and my buyer a few months ago. The on-site builder representative calls me and says, it's time to do your pre-drywall inspection if you'd like to. And so a pre-drywall inspection is when an inspector comes into the home and looks things over when it's just at the wood stage before the insulation is in and the walls are up. So the way you just basically can literally stand at the front door and see all the way through the house and upstairs and all that. If you've ever been to a construction site, you know what I'm talking about. Well, this was great because I had encouraged my client to have this inspection. Inspector was prepared and ready to go. Here was the catch. She told me that it was time to do the pre-drywall inspection after the insulation and some of the drywall was already up. I said to her, isn't this a little bit like getting a pregnancy test after the kid's born? She wasn't really happy with me. She didn't like that one. So just be prepared in this situation. These builders do not want you to do these inspections. Another story, I think the same builder gave us like a window of like Tuesday at midnight until Wednesday at 4 a.m. to do the inspection. It wasn't that bad, but it basically was like 13 days before closing. Well, you had to calculate back. What was 13 days before closing? We don't really know what that is, if they speed things up, slow things down. So I had to stay on this on-site. When is this going to be allowed? You had 2 whole days to do this inspection. Luckily, my inspector is amazing. They are the best around, and they knew this was going to happen, and they had their schedule kind of flexible and had told the other buyers agents out there that had hired them that week, hey, we may have to move things around. We've got a new construction crazy situation. The house turned out well, but it was a pretty big inconvenience, and I can see how they use this as an opportunity to keep buyer agents from having inspections done. So on to bad thing they do number 3, lying about timelines. So understandably so, in the last couple years, there have been a lot of delays in building homes. Shortages of materials have been rampant. Right now it's appliances and windows. It used to be paint and drywall, and heating and air systems are even getting now slowed down. In addition, you have shortages of manpower to build these houses. All of these things factor in and cause homes to take much longer to build than they have in the past. It's completely understandable. Where the problem comes in is when a builder promises a date of closing and does not fulfill that date, and worse still, does not communicate that it could happen. 2 stories about this. The first one, I had a very, very nice client who was buying a townhome in Wake Forest. We did not allow this builder to be vague about things. We stayed on top of them. She and I both did. When are we closing? When are we closing? When are we closing? How are things going? Everything's going fine, we were told. Everything's going fine. No surprises at all. Then all of a sudden, when it got close to closing and there was a lot of work left to do, I said, hey, to the builder representative, hey, what's going on? We're supposed to close in July. Why? What's the situation? Oh, we've been delayed. It's going to be now August before we can close. Well, you didn't tell anyone anything about this situation. And so the buyer was in her apartment. The lease was up. She set the lease to end in July because she was told she was closing in July. Had they bothered to tell her July 1st or June whenever, 20th, hey, we're going to be delayed, it's going to be more like August 15th, she could have easily added another month to her lease and been fine. Instead, the leasing company at her apartment complex rented out her place. She had nowhere to go. She had to spend a fortune on an Airbnb for those 2 weeks, 3 weeks until we could get the house done. It was super stressful for her. Another story, even worse, if you can believe that, there's a builder in like eastern part of the triangle of Wake County that is building very affordable homes, had client that bought from them when it was dirt. I mean, still like trees and grass on the lot, dirt. They were promised a closing date. We said, great. My folks were in Florida, no big deal. They were gonna live there and sell their house, time it just right so that they would sell, live somewhere super temporarily in Florida, and then move here for their new home. As we got closer to the closing date, the builder said, we're not gonna be able to make that date, it's gonna be next month. And then when that came, we're not gonna be able to make that date, it's gonna be 2 weeks from now. On and on. 4 different times they promised us a closing date. Finally, 3 months after closing was supposed to actually happen, when that home was supposed to be done, my folks were finally able to move in the home. And in fact, a week before the closing was supposed to happen, before the home was to be moved into, it looked like there was definitely like 3-4 weeks worth of work to be done. They must have worked 24 hours a day for a week. I don't know how they did it. Needless to say, my folks had already sold their house in Florida, had completed their short-term rental in Florida, and had moved to Raleigh, had to get a tiny little apartment, 2 dogs, 2 kids, 2 adults in a tiny apartment in Knightdale, waiting for this house to be done. The wife was livid. We met the builder who, again, the third of the 4th times that we finally were promised closing. We met the builder. She read him the riot act and was crying, and I felt terrible about it. The builders would not communicate back with me or with them. The buyer thought that I was not doing my job. Finally, she realized, oh gosh, Chris has been busting his butt to get us in this house. It's the builder all along. And so it was a disaster situation. Luckily, we got an inspection done. Everything was okay, give or take. They got in the house, but again, they had to spend a fortune on a short-term rental in Knightdale, and then they had to get an Airbnb because even the Knightdale lease ran out on them. So they had 2 leases run out. It was a mess. So please understand that these things can happen. Do all you can do to communicate with the builder, and don't really trust them when they tell you that the closing date is going to be such and such. Wait until about 30 days before closing date, and hopefully they're going to be able to give you a better answer on that before you terminate your lease. Keep your lease going as best you can until you absolutely close. That is the hope. The good builders don't do this. What the good builders do is they don't even promise you a date. They tell you, we are building your house, here's the progress as we go along, and as soon as we know when it will be available to close, we will let you know. Generally, they let you know about 30 days in advance that you can close, and then everything is smooth sailing. If you're told in advance to make plans that you're going to close on March 31st, and it isn't until May 31st that you close, you're not going to be a happy camper. So anyway, there's another example of good builder versus bad builder. So bad thing number 4 that these builders do, canceling buyer contracts. So why in the world would a builder cancel a buyer's contract? Well, there's a logical reason for that. Let's say you went under contract from a dirt lot to build a house with a builder. Let's say you plan to spend $400,000 on that house. During the process of the year, the builder's building your house, everything is going groovy and great and everybody's happy. All of a sudden they cancel your contract. The reason they would do this is because, take 2021, when our market grew 26%, that builder realizes that $400,000 house you paid for, he could cancel your contract, immediately put it back on the market for $500,000 and pocket an additional $100,000 profit on that house. No skin off his nose. He's going to get that house sold in a day or 2. The problem is with you, you're going to be stuck because your budget was $400,000 on that situation. The house that you would have bought for $400,000 back early 2021 is not the same house you can buy in early 2022. So you're stuck holding the bag, or you're stuck trying to figure out how to come up with an additional $100,000 to pay for that house. This very scenario happened to a bunch of buyers in a condo community in Wake Forest. I believe it was a condo community. It just happened this week. I read about it on a Facebook real estate group. The whole complex, they terminated all the contracts. Why? Well, because the building took a few years to build. Prices have changed just a little tiny bit since 2020, 2019. So the builder found out they could make more money by terminating the contracts and getting on with things. So just remember, the take-home message for all this is, The builder contracts are written to the benefit of the builder. There are things in these contracts that say builder can unilaterally terminate your contract. For those contracts, I would be kind of leery about signing them. I would probably move on to another builder. It can easily say in the contract, builder can take as much time as needed to build this house. Again, I had a builder contract that said builder has 3 years to start your house. My client did not sign that when we walked on. Just know that these contracts are written to the benefit of the builder, and there's no repercussions you have if they decide to terminate your contract or if they delay things, like for my client, 3 months. So remember, you haven't heard me say this before, do not have any conversations with any builders or any builder representative without hiring your own representative first. They are an invaluable resource for both reading your contract, helping you pick out a plan, helping you decide if the beautiful model is great and if it looks like the home you're gonna buy, or if it's like silk purse versus sow's ear, as the old saying goes. Buyer representation is invaluable to you. Please use them. So again, if you need some information about some of the good builders, please feel free to message us. Please email us. We'll be happy to help. And with that being said, please take a look at this video. This is a video we shot a while back of all of some of our favorite builders. We think it'll be very valuable. We loaded it full of great names of people we really endorse. And with that being said, we appreciate you watching as always. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.